Greetings, dear viewer. One thing that I like to do when a new game comes out is try to sit down and figure out whether or not that this is something that I'm actually going to like. And if you've been following my channel, the jury's pretty much in. You should have a fairly good grasp on where I stand on whether or not I would like Banished. However, if you haven't yet made up your mind, then I hope that maybe I can give you a little bit more information about this game of Banished, so maybe you can finally figure out for yourself whether or not you would like Banished. So let's start at the beginning and find out what this game actually is. So one guy sat down under the name Shining Rock Software and decided that he was going to create himself a city building game. And immediately that very name, city building game, we're used to the genre. We know of games like SimCity and that whole franchise. We know of games like Cities XL. Same thing, whole franchise. We maybe even go further back, all the way back to games like Caesar and Pharaoh. Generally speaking, when we hear that word, we have some kind of a clue as to what we're going to be in for when we actually sit down and play a city building game. And if you are like that, and if you think you already know what you're going to find in Banish, you might be in for a little bit of a surprise. Let's take the most common one, for example. SimCity. Great. You have money. You've got residential, commercial, industrial, you can zone to your heart's content, then you can unpause, assuming that you're giving them civics, and just let your city grow as much as possible with really very little interaction from you as to what the game is doing now that everything's been placed down. Cities XL, pretty much the same thing, only on a much larger scale. Huge area to develop your city, but again, as long as you've got those resources, money predominantly, various other resources I won't go into, then you can just pretty much plunk building by building down across wherever you want, really. Design any particular city that you have in mind, and yeah, you're good to go. Alright, so what makes Banished so different? Well, as highlighted in the upper left-hand corner, you actually do not have money in this game. What you have are resources. You have logs, stone, iron, firewood, and food. Those are the key essentials that you need for your people, who you can see plainly on the screen in the middle, is what they need to survive. Which brings us to the next important change in this game. Those people that you see are important, because you cannot simply zone everything and then expect people to be coming all the way across the map from every which way to start settling your area. These people are the people that you have in the beginning of the game, and they're the ones who are going to painstakingly grow your village from a tiny, maybe 3 or 4 house hut into whatever it is that you have that you want to do in this game. Of course, in this game, you can only build with resources. The resources that you can find listed in the upper left-hand corner. Those are predominantly the resources that you need to acquire immediately in the game in an effort to not have your citizens die. So the question is, how, of course, do you get all of these resources for your people? Well, by telling your people to go out into the world around them and gather that themselves. Be it lumber from trees, or maybe stone, which you can see on the ground, iron, which is sometimes in the ground, or mined out of the mountains. In my opinion, it makes for a really nice mechanic, because it kind of reminds me of my Age of Empires days, where you started out and you had people, and yeah, they had to go out and work things, and gather the materials you needed for your little civilization to thrive. I enjoyed Age of Empires, I really did. A lot of other people did too. And this really reminded me of it with the whole starting thing. Right, so big deal. Unlike the other city building games that have actual cold hard cash that you're spending resources. But you can still just like build up and then leave your citizens alone, right? I mean, if you run out of resources, you can come back, tell them to do something else, and then you're fine. Surely, right? No, if you're not careful and you leave your citizens alone, they might get funny little icons over their houses like this one and that one that just appeared. That means that they're cold. And if they're cold and winter comes, you've seen the snow already, they're going to freeze to death. So right away, there's a mechanic in this game which seeks to kill off your citizens if you're not paying attention. That being, are they warm enough? Do they have warm clothing in the winter? Can they burn firewood or coal in their chimneys in the winter? If not, then they're going to die. Just like if they don't have enough food, they're going to die. If they freeze to death, that's pretty dead too. So those are two mechanics, both the hunger and the whole freezing to death, that you really have to pay attention to, and hope the little guy chopping firewood hurries the heck up and chops faster so they don't die off on you. These are things that you have to monitor. So right away we're getting a sense of who this game is for. If you are the type of person who just wants to build in your city building games a nice giant landscape, maybe ground cloud buildings just everywhere, you know, skyscraper forest, don't really want to get into the day-to-day of your citizens' lives so much, then yeah, okay, it might be a fair point. This game might not be for you. However, if you do want to get a little bit more hands-on and check into the lives of your citizens, and just all around make sure they're okay and provide for them based on whatever they need, then yeah, okay, so far maybe this game is for you. Because there are quite a number of ways where you can check in on your citizens and see how they're doing. For example, you can click on a house and check to see who is living there, and find out a little bit about them. What's their age? What's their gender? Do they currently have anyone that they're living with? Do they have any kids? There's an inventory tab that you can clearly see there. That too is interesting, because you can see what items they have inside their home. Do they have plenty of food? Do they have no food? Do they have plenty of firewood? Do they have no firewood? All that good stuff. In fact, you can sit there and watch as your citizens go from their job to their house, follow them around, and watch them as they go in their day-to-day lives. Now, think about that right now. Does that sound familiar? Do you remember another game by any chance that came out last year that promised you the ability to do the exact same thing, to follow your citizens around, to watch as they went from the home that they had to the place of work and back again, and find out everything about them, their name, their age, what their concerns were, etc., etc., etc.? That might sound familiar, right? Just a little? Just a little? Yeah, I felt that. Yeah, I had a feeling that'd be a little bit familiar. Well, it was impossible with that game, apparently. So one guy decided to do it in this one, and thank God for that. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, the game does have its little quirks. For example, hills, as you can see right here. One of the things that really starts to annoy you is the fact that you can't really put any kind of structure, even something as simple as a road, over even the tiniest of hills, which kind of throws you off when you're trying to, let's say, design something. Maybe you're trying to put in a house, or you're trying to put in just like a road to somewhere. Well, you're going to quickly get frustrated by the fact that there's going to be a lot of areas that if there's any kind of elevation changes, you're just not going to be able to do anything. Despite it not even being that large, 1, 2 feet, something like that. You won't be able to build on it, and it will annoy you. That's one thing about this game that I think does need a little bit of work still. And speaking of things that need a little bit more work, the content. I don't know, man. When you're building up a large or even a medium-sized town, you might want to populate it with a whole bunch of different buildings, but you're going to be finding that you've got your market, which is, you know, great, looks good. I like the look of almost all the buildings, really. You've got your schoolhouse. Alright, sure, that goes in there. Hospital makes perfect sense. Town hall, great, throw it on in there. Chapels, sure, why not? Place of worship, great. Cemeteries make sense. But there's not a lot in terms of maybe even decorative buildings or decorative items that you can throw into your place. There's not a lot of just kind of frivolous or other sort of random buildings that you can just populate your town with, to sort of give it a little extra something special, you know, to specialize your town in a bit of a way that you see fit. It kind of just starts feeling like maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of a lack of option, which, to be fair, there are quite a few options. Take the wooden house, for example. The wooden house, okay, great. I do like it. Stone houses, I like that you can choose between them. But I would like to choose between that and maybe something more. I don't know, there's just something missing there. There needs to be like more than maybe 2 types of houses, I feel, despite the fact you can completely change the look of the house. I mean, they gave you different models to choose from. You can tab through them and influence the way your town looks in that regard, which is really, really good. I just think there needs to be something a little bit more than just those two basic types. Like maybe you unlock better housing in some fashion, or maybe you unlock more wealthy housing in some fashion. Just a little extra something, you know? But don't get me wrong, I don't want to imply that there's, you know, no customization in this game. There's a lot of customization. I mean, take the farms, for example. Here you can see a wheat farm, looks really, really great. There are multiple different kinds of farms that you can build. There's farms, there's orchards. You can grow tons of different things in your city to, you know, satisfy your citizens, turn it into ale at a tavern house, all of those sorts of deals. There is customization. If we go over here and look at our little trading post, we can even scroll down and see all of the little different things that we can either gather or grow or whatever that we can use or trade for other things. And that's all wonderful. That's all wonderful. You do have customization in that game. Don't take my little nitpicking to assume that there isn't, because that's not what I'm trying to say. So, that said, would you like Banished? That's the ultimate question, the reason why this video is being created. Got to review some of what's in the game, you now know about a lot of the features, have a general idea of the gameplay, and maybe even a few ideas on what you can have your town look like, though the variation on that I'm sure is, you know, just about infinite given the huge number of maps in there. Well, I think you would. If I had to rate this game, I would probably give it about an 8 out of 10. Now, you might think, doesn't that sound a little bit high? I mean, you just complained about some weird features with the terrain that seems to annoy you. You mentioned that maybe there needs to be a little bit more content. How could you actually give this game an 8 out of 10 if it does have that issue? Well, it's actually pretty easy to do so, because you have to keep in mind, you have to bear in mind, one person created this game. I mean, if a company as large as EA, for example, had created it, I might look at that and think, you know, the reason why that content's missing is because they're going to try to have us pay for it later. There's going to be like a $30 DLC that just gives more buildings, or another DLC that's going to allow you to actually edit or level the terrain in some fashion. And I'd be pissed. But I don't think that's what's going on here. I mean, it's one guy making this, and I'm sure he's going to release content patches for the game. Who knows what he's going to add, but I'm sure he has further ideas on what he wants added into the game, and what he's added in there so far is really, really good. So given that, I think if he can address some of the issues, minor issues. I mean, I haven't had any crash to desktops, though apparently a couple people have, and he's working on those. The game itself is really tiny, it doesn't take up almost any resources on my computer to run. I haven't found any really, really glaring bugs with the terrain like I did in some games last year. So if you can address some of the minor issues with the game and add a little bit more content to it, I would give this game a solid 10 out of 10. Easy, hands down. Worth 20 bucks? Are you on drugs? Of course it's worth 20 bucks. I would gladly probably pay twice that for this game, rather than, let's say, triple that for a game that came out last year that shall remain nameless, which is definitely not worth the cost. So, absolutely, if you like what I showed you so far, I think you're really going to like this game of Banished. I think you'll like it even more as he starts putting out content patches for it, which I'm sure is on the horizon. Modding, that's on the horizon too, and he's been looking forward to doing that. So yeah, where this game is going to go in the future, I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to it because I like what I'm seeing so far. And I hope you do too, and check it out. 20 bucks on Steam. Probably can't go wrong, and you probably made a lot worse decisions in your life. So if you've been interested, check it out. And thanks for watching my video. Hope you guys enjoy the game, and I'll see you all next time.